Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, our director discussion show here on the Nerd Party Network. Today, we're in the final match of the House of Zwick with his 2015 film, Pawn Sacrifice, the biographical drama of chess grandmaster Bobby Fischer. I'm Darren, phone repairman Moser, and I'm joined again by my friends John Sicilian Move Mills and lawyer to the stars, Tristan Riddell. It's your move,
once again, man.
we
Darren,
discuss Pawn Sacrifice.
Darren just gets it. You know,
you guys live for these intros. You're like,
I do.
What's he gonna do today?
Who am I going to be this time? I like
highlight
this.
of my week.
I like this.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's kind of the highlight of this discussion, and it's gonna go in a direction from here.
It'll go somewhere.
It'll go somewhere.
It'll go somewhere.
Yes.
Yes, it will go somewhere.
Man, so right out of the gate, we are not hiding our feelings whatsoever.
I think I might actually wind up being the least curmudgeonly of the group of us. However,
Because you were there in 72.
I was a great idea. I had not yet been realized. I think things go differently if I were. I think that this is one of those things where I wonder if having something at this point that is set in that whole Cold War, et cetera, sort of thing, it doesn't hit the same way it used to. Like, there's almost like a thing where like this was its own genre of like, this is what it was like during this time era thing. And it's like, I think this winds up at a disadvantage because by 2014 and now when we're watching it in 2024, this is distant enough in the past, but we've seen so much about it that it's like, yeah. US, USSR hate each other. Everything's about, everybody thought it was the great. Yeah.
Like, it was so amazing. They were having this fight in Iceland. And then over here, we had Rocky trying to defeat the Russians as well. Like, it all came to a head in the same year, didn't it?
Oh, no, Rocky. No. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it becomes a blur, yes. But Bobby Fischer started the end game and Rocky delivered the checkmate. That's what happened.
Speaking of like historical stuff, I mean, because, the Rocky thing actually happened. It was crazy what happened in 72. Like just the 1 year alone, like Vietnam's winding down. Nixon goes to China. There's the Nixon's, shenanigans with breaking into the DNC. I'm going to have to look it up, but there's like, I remember. There's so much going on in 72, but yet this is what everybody was talking about. And I feel like, John, you were talking about a disconnect. To me, I think that's the disconnect, is that when you have something that's like Apollo 13, we weren't around for Apollo 13, but yet the whole world was watching, everyone was paying attention, and we can believe that in our bones. Now, I'm not arguing the historical accuracy of Bobby Fischer's celebrity, or that the whole world was watching, or that he was like a rock star and like he was huge. I'm not arguing that. But for some reason, when I watch Apollo 13, I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. But when I watch this, I'm just like, okay, all right, I guess.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it is every single interaction between the two sides was given this sort of weight to it. Like, this is our chance to prove we're the best at everything, sort of vibe to it.
Kind of the ideological side of the war.
But what I think is missing from this is there's plenty of emphasis on Bobby Fischer became a rock star. We have all of these clips, both real and manufactured, to illustrate that. What this film is missing, in my opinion, is a voice of somebody cynical about people paying attention to it, to sort of contextualize it as that there were undoubtedly people saying exactly what you're saying, Tristan. Why are we caught up in this? We have all of this other stuff happening. Why aren't we paying it? This is distracting everyone from the actual root problems that we have to address. And then have somebody say, no, you have to understand, just like they did with the movie Miracle, which I think did it perfectly, where that hockey game was really important, but you sit there and you're like, it's just a hockey game. But they have this one scene where the two guys are sitting in the car and one guy says, do you really think, like, he's basically being the voice of the cynic. And the other guy in the car, Kenneth Welsh, I think was the guy who played him. He said, this is all going to work out, but this is really important because this is in people's hearts. And this is why we need to care about this. And just that one
there was
scene
no context
like that.
of that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There was no outside perspective. Like, this is a very small cast, and almost everybody is inside the chess universe. Pretty much the only people outside were, Donna, who, again, that scene where like they're rewatching game 4 or something. And I'm like, do you guys even understand what's going on? Like, people are watching chess and I get it, but like, do you really understand? Or are you just kind of in it to win it? But yeah, there was no outside person, maybe like a childhood friend or somebody that could just give that perspective of the everyday person. We were all in this tiny club for the entire movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That was actually one of my favorite lines or moments in the movie, was when they were in the bar and rewatching, and he says something to the effect of like, "Oh, he just took his rook." She's like, "I took his virginity." And that was so freaking funny.
And I like the guy behind him is all like, "You guys know he won this one." It's like, "Yeah, we're rewatching it." I'm like, "Okay, sure, man. Must be a slow night."
Hold on, there were like 3 channels back then.
True.
So
true.
You were very limited in what you. If they were showing a repeat, that meant that like whatever else was on the other channel was some sitcom we've never heard of, because everybody, hated it or something like that. So
I just looked it up, and Munich happened in 72 as well. So all of that was going on in the same year.
So, little things in American and Soviet history, just little.
But even that would have been. Oh, did it happen before or after this chess match?
Oh no, I'm not saying like, oh, people had more important things to worry about. I'm just saying that like it was a big year.
I'm saying having more emphasis, I think, because you hear about the Watergate break-in in the background, you hear about certain things. I think maybe having more, even if it's fictional, fictionalized sort of like news coverage. And then in the other news about Bobby Fischer, or they could say, this is 3 months after Munich, like something to give us
coverage
of
the Watergate scandal. Bobby Fischer has won game 4. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the one of the screenwriters, Stephen Knight, I think, was there in 72, and he said he's like, yeah, it was weird. He's like, every news during the championship, like every news station and newscast during the championship would start the news by saying what was happening in Iceland at that time. Like they would start the news that way, and I'm so far from it. I'm so far from it that I'm just like, well, it sounds fake, but okay.
No, again, just anchor it. Just anchor it and show a little bit more of the news coverage. Like open with Bobby Fischer, and then whomever the news coverage guy says something else about what's going on, so I can contextualize everything. But not to keep hammering on that, because the thing is, like structurally, other than that, I don't have a problem. Like it's not like one of those things where I sit down and I'm like, oh, that sucked. I wouldn't have cut this. I would have had this scene here. This is one of those things where it's really frustrating to even criticize this film, because I'm like, procedurally, it's really put together the way it should be, and it builds, and the performances are fine. I actually think Lee Schreiber
at the beginning, and then you go back into his past, and because this was all the first time, I believe, that all of us have watched this. Like, definitely, I did not catch it in theaters. Didn't even know it existed until we were going through the House of Zwick, and I kind of told Tristan this, before we recorded. I have to give it at least a mark for the fact that, not that I've seen Tobey Maguire in a lot of stuff, but I did not see Spider-Man. I actually saw another character really well acted through this entire movie, and I have to give him props for that, because when you are an actor that is so shadowed by a particular pop culture role, it can at times, not for everybody, but for me at least, it's hard to get out of that shadow.
I want to throw an idea at you guys because definitely.
But you got to hit the clock first, so it's your turn.
Yeah,
and
right. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to throw an idea at you guys because basically the movie near the end then flips it around where it winds up affecting Spassky, played by Liev Schreiber, where he starts getting paranoid about everything. And it starts affecting him, and he's the skeptic saying, no, he's not this way. He's messing with me. I refuse to lose this way. And it amps him up.
He gets in his head, whereas he got in his head the first time they played.
But the thing is, I never have a reason as an audience member to question whether this is authentically who he is. I almost wonder if there could have been an opportunity to pull back a little bit so that you're left to question whether Bobby Fischer is screwing with us as the audience.
Prestige.
I have no reason to question. Yes, exactly. I have no reason to question it. If all I see is his lawyer come in at that one point and the room's trashed and he's sitting there and the lawyer's like, dude, what's happening here? I'm trying to get all of these people. And I never see the buildup. I never see him actually freak out alone. Then when Spassky has his moment of doubt where he's like, no, this isn't him. This is a game that he's playing. Then as an audience member, I actually wind up enjoying it more because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm drawing the wrong conclusion. And it can toy with me that way.
Well, once you start to hear voices in his perspective, that's
right.
when it's like, now you believe. Now you're not being presented with that is the reasonable doubt going out the window. And you're like, oh no, he's literally hearing voices. He is going off the rails.
And also when his sister comes in concerned, you're like, okay, yeah, that puts the nail in the coffin. Like for people who don't know anything about Bobby Fischer, this would be a first time experience. To me, like, Darren, you mentioned the beginning hook. And John, you talked about structurally. I think you're right. Like structurally, this makes sense. The way that it's laid out, it's like a classic sports biopic kind of deal. Like it's
you
played
have the
out that
locker room
way.
shot of the final game at the very beginning, and then you cut back to how we got there.
I don't like that. I think that's something that I would change. Don't Tarantino it. Like don't start with the end and then come back. Like start with his childhood and move forward. And so that we're along for the ride with him, so that we have that doubt that you're talking about, John. I think the beginning kind of solidifies it because he's alone and we're like, oh, he's screwed up. What is it? Like, he's paranoid? Is he a paranoid schizophrenic? Is he manic? Like what is it? What's going on? We know something because we've been told many times through society and through movies that genius comes at a cost. And we're like, so this is what this story is.
I mean, I don't remember it. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but yeah, it would be like A Beautiful Mind starting with something towards the very end with like all the personalities and things around. And then you jump back and see how he got there. That would have wrecked that movie like that. I don't want to see that hook at the end, but it's interesting though. Because I didn't have a problem with the hook because it kind of was telling me this is the kind of movie, this is what you're going to be in for. Like, oh, like there's people taking pictures. And then when it jumps back to people taking pictures of him in the past, I'm like, oh, okay. So there's some validity behind these concerns. But it was almost like the kind of hook you put into a streaming movie where you have to make sure people are going to stick around and watch it. But this was a theatrical movie. They've already bought the ticket and they're already sitting there. Like, you don't have to structure it that way. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I hate that you bring that up because that's such a real thing. Oh
yeah, I mean, I think Zwick, yes, boxes himself in there. I can see arguments for and against. I think that McGuire's performance is really solid. I just have trouble putting my finger on what just doesn't quite ignite because.
Like, are we supposed to feel sorry for Fischer? Like, what are we supposed to feel at the end of this?
Right. Yes. And again, on top of that, there's sort of this thing where at least I have a payoff in, I'll make reference to it again, something like Miracle, where at the end I'm cheering with the audience. I'm like, yeah, they did it. They won. And at the end of this, I'm like, I don't know what I should care about. To your point, Darren, I'm like, I have no I didn't feel any emotional investment in what this meant for the world or
because he wins off screen. He wins off screen,
Right.
and then we're out of the movie like 30 seconds later with a couple of titles and, filling the gap, and then actual footage of Bobby Fischer. Like, it's a very odd ending. I don't know how I would fix it or what I would change, because there's other things that it doesn't show. Like, there's whole games it doesn't show. Like, it's just like, oh, he moved one thing, and then the next shot is like the next day, and it's like, oh yeah, he lost. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a choice. I mean, again, I don't know how you're going to tell a 2-hour movie about chess and show all the chess. Like, I get that, but the ending. I think I really like your comparison to Miracle, John, because, which again, I haven't seen in forever, so I'm kind of pulling at threads. But yeah, but at the end, like, that moment is Spassky clapping for him, and the announcer's all like, oh, grandmasters never clap for their opponents. And I'm like, it doesn't quite have the same zeal as, like, the guy makes the final goal and everyone's rushing the rink and cheering.
Right. Well, I think it also would have been nice to support that by showing more of other people playing and showing how stern or dispassionate people are when they leave their matches, so that when Spassky claps, you get that it's like, oh, this is really special what just happened. And instead, I don't have any frame of reference except for the announcer to say, oh wow, nobody ever claps. I'm like, I didn't.
When you have
get
it's like
that
when you have to put a
impression.
narration to tell you that you're supposed to notice that and know that. It's like, oh, but you didn't. I mean, you didn't set it up and have a payoff because you didn't give me that information in a natural way.
I'm going to ask you guys a weird question. Have you guys ever been avid chess players at all?
Avid.
I mean, that's I wouldn't say avid.
Okay.
I know.
I enjoy the game, but I never get anybody to play with. I played with a 6-year-old, last year. That's the first time I played in like 20 years.
I think we're both at the level of just, we know how the pieces move, but we're not, there's no strategy. There's no like, yes, the Sicilian maneuver. I see. It's like, okay, sure. Like, I'm not thinking far ahead.
Well, the reason I ask is because I wonder if this movie plays differently for people who are chess obsessives. Like my uncle, when I was growing up, I actually chuckled during this because he says at one point, do unexpected moves, and the Russians don't know what to do with it because they become reactionary. They don't know what to do. My uncle was actually like a great chess player, and I played one of the timed matches with him. It's the only one I ever did. I had no idea what I was doing, and because I had no idea what I was doing, we wound up fighting to a draw because he couldn't figure out what he thought. I was trying to outsmart him, and I'm like, chaos. And he's like, I don't know what to do.
Stupid, it's smart.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I lasted 30 minutes. Woohoo.
Yeah. Well, like you said, John, I mean, earlier in the movie, when we're seeing Bobby play against other people and do the whole like walking down the row, like playing 8 games at once, like I actually enjoyed that more. I enjoyed that more than the duel at the end of 1-on-1 and seeing him react, seeing him as a young kid react. And we also kind of had like the teacher analog, who kind of discovered him and got him started, who kind of disappears for the whole second half of the movie. Like
he just kind of pops up with some reaction shots. Why is he not in the inner circle?
Yeah. It said it's the lawyer and the priest.
Well, it is based off of a true story, so you can't.
Which I know, I get that,
and those never take liberties. You're right. They're always
shut
very,
up! Don't turn that back.
Very accurate.
What if they made the lawyer the priest? They just combine the roles, and
now you're just talking crazy, Darren.
I know.
That's nuts.
That'd be nuts.
That's absolutely crazy.
Speaking of the lawyer, actually, speaking of the lawyer and the priest, this cast
walk into a bar and
this is filled with people who, when you see their name in any movie, you're like, oh, this is going to be a better movie because of it. Like, Liev Schreiber, Peter Sarsgaard, Michael Stuhlbarg, like all of those people are actors who are usually supporting or usually like the third or, fourth lead or something like that. But they always bring it. Like every single role they're in, you're like, man, they're here. They know what to do. and they're entertaining. And I thought that this was a very good movie when it came to performances. And Darren, you were talking about Tobey Maguire. I think he did a stellar job after seeing some of the interview, like the real interviews with Bobby Fischer. A younger Bobby Fischer was like, holy crap, yeah, he really did. Like he's not mimicking him to a T, but he's the Tobey Maguire version. Like it's not like he's Gary Oldman or something like that, but yet he's bringing what he needs to bring in order to make it a legit biopic. And I always, I throughout the movie, I thought that was really good, and it was. I feel like the movie started with a lot of goodwill. I was in it. I was with him. I was just like watching him, rise up as a kid, then as a teenager, and then we get to Tobey Maguire's version. It just, like they introduced the lawyer, then they introduced the priest, and they realize that they have history. And I love the moments between, Fisher and the priest, like especially when they were just playing chess audibly. I was like, holy crap, that is cool.
It's like the fact that he never turns off. He's always playing chess in his mind. And that's
like
symbolized
even after
at the end where he closes up the book and you're like, oh, he's kind of done.
Yeah. But once we got into it, like once we got into the championship stuff and he started getting more and more famous, that's when I feel like the movie loses you. That's when I feel like they used up their goodwill. But what makes this a frustrating... but what makes this a frustrating conversation is none of us can really say why. Like, why? It's so hard to nail down to one thing.
Maybe it's the nature of a biopic of a real person and a real life. And the closer we get to the actual event that really happened, the less narrative it becomes and the more biopic-y it becomes. And that kind of drains the color from the narrative because the end has to be what happened. Now, I personally don't care. They could say, oh yeah, they played the whole rest of it in the basement and then they played on the roof, and then like they could do whatever they want, but obviously they're not going to because of the nature of biopics. But yeah, maybe that's it. The farther they got from the creative license and the more towards this pivotal moment, it just didn't. Like I kept thinking, why are these guys up in the stands? Like why would they not be right behind the curtain ready to rush out and help him? Because like he obviously needs help when he needs help.
Well, it's like football. You have to have your defensive coordinator
who's mimicking the plays on a board, and everyone else is mimicking the plays on the board.
Yeah. I think that it literally is just the subject matter here is not going to electrify an audience. Because it's just, I apologize to anybody that's offended by this. It's just a chess game. There's nothing inherently, they could have taken, for all I know, they took all the license with this. And I have no idea what they fudged. I have no idea how they got inside the room to know what happened with Bobby Fischer and his lawyer. That's probably invented, that sort of thing. But I think that there's also a stylistic thing. The successful biopics are the ones that just say, screw it, it's a movie, and they lean into it. I will always point to Oliver Stone's movie, The Doors, which roughly resembles Jim Morrison's life. Or I'll look at,
something like Ray. Like that's a fun story of a guy's life,
and that has just as many licenses taken as
sure.
The Door. But that's the point is, you have to jazz it up. It's a movie. If you know what? I think maybe that's it. This, I would say Zwick is feeling so obligated to be as truthful about the time period and history and the story that he hamstrings himself. This is documentary territory. And
apparently that's why he was hired, which I think is really interesting because the producers, and Tobey Maguire was one of the producers, the reason why Zwick was brought in, because apparently a lot of high-level people were attached to this. Fincher was attached to this for years, and they brought in, and I'm about to mention that. I'm going to expound on that in a second. Zwick was brought in because in his previous movies, he has such an attention detail and accuracy that they're like, oh, that's what this movie needs. But going back to Fincher, can you imagine what Fincher would have done with this?
Bobby Fincher?
I think that it's possible that this goes into Mank territory for Fincher.
Ooh, I don't know if I'd go that far.
I
don't know if I'd
would
go that far.
I think, I think Fincher, if he leans into less accuracy and more, not full tilt, keep in mind, I'm just, for the sake of illustrating verbally, like, if he's allowed to play more with being in Bobby Fischer's mind the way he is in Fight Club, that works. That's a Fincher movie.
Because if you bring him in, and like, he really would have expanded on the paranoia aspect of his personality. And I'm not just talking about the idiosyncrasies or him constantly saying the Russians are out to get me. No, like, we would have felt his paranoia. We would have been in it kind of with him.
Aviator level of paranoia. You know what I mean? Like, but not like Fight Club level of paranoia.
I think Fincher probably has more shadowy, like shadows on the wall sort of thing that like he jumps at sort of stuff. Like, and we get the impression that we're seeing things too. I'll see that point. That's a good point.
Where instead it went back to the memory. Like, it was very obvious. He's seeing that memory of being in his mother's house and the people under the door. Like, we kept having that exact same shot, the same noise of the pounding on the door. Like, I'm like, this is just his past banging on the door. It's not necessarily paranoia. I mean, it is, but
that's it. I think you just pointed at something that is missing as well, is that idea of Fischer playing Spassky and the Russians, and why it messes with him so much is he's playing his past, because his mom was a sympathizer, and like, it led to all of these problems, and the FBI was watching his house. That connection never really fires. Have it be more about him having to fight that's his internal struggle. I think that is one of the things. You just found it right there that could have made this come to life.
And that's always difficult. Internal struggles. How do you show an internal struggle in a movie? It's not a book. You can't put yourself in it.
I think that's the thing.
But it's
Oh no, I really didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, I was just saying that it is doable, but it takes craft and skill, and it is not always achieved.
And that's why I feel like somebody like Fincher has the mastery of the visual language to do that. And like, one thing that really sticks out to me, and I think is a great comparison of the directors, is the scene where Fischer wakes up on the beach. And he sees Spassky and his handlers, like Spassky swimming, and then his handlers are there. The way that Zwick shoots it is very real, is very honest and very accurate. Like, McGuire Fisher thinks that he's like, he wakes up and he's like, oh my God, are they following me? Are they following me? And we as the audience know he's just a narcissistic asshole. That's all he is. But if you have someone like Fincher, and everybody knows I'm a Fincher fanboy, but like, if you have somebody like Fincher, even if we know he's a paranoid schizophrenic, Fincher would have utilized the visual language and the ambiguity of Fisher's mind in order to bring us into the fold. And I think that's what Zwick doesn't do. He doesn't bring us into Fisher's world. We're an outsider. We're a knowledgeable outsider, but we're kind of like the priest. Like, sometimes we're the priest, sometimes we're the lawyer.
Maybe that's it. Is that the main character shouldn't have been Fisher. It should have been one of the people with him, so that we could have sympathized with him.
But not.
We could have sympathized with that character more.
And that would have been our point of view character. Because our point of view character is Fisher, which is also weird because, that would have been a very different direction. I mean, the first draft, when Zwick wanted Denzel Washington to play Boris, like, I was amazed, but hey, we'll take it. No, I want to say
blind casting.
Liv Schreiber, he did amazing in this. I mean, the acting he does, I mean, not to say like I'm surprised, but the acting he does, especially in the end, the amount of information he's conveying with like a look, like, it's like, okay, and you're gonna channel, I just realized I lost, but because of this, and this, and go, and it comes on his face, and I'm like, wow, that's really good.
Lee Schreiber is easily one of the most overlooked actors working today. He's not a household name. He'll probably never be a household name, but to your point, he's so gifted he has such a talent, such skill, and he's given not a whole lot of screen time, but even the first moments where you meet him, the way he walks as he's wearing his sunglasses and going out on the beach, like you get a feel, like you feel like you know this guy.
Yeah. He feels like a real
know.
person.
Yeah.
He doesn't
I know.
feel like a Russian caricature at all, ever.
Right. He
Ever.
feels like somebody that exists.
Very,
Yeah.
very true, Darren. Like he never feels like just a stereotype that we have for Soviets, not even Russians, but Soviets. You know?
Everyone around him, all his handlers felt like stereotypes, everybody else, but he felt like a man who is at this peak of his game, world champion.
And I think that's also another thing, though, is that, like, John, I think you might have touched on this earlier, is that, you know, they play on the paranoia and everybody's just like, oh, you know, yeah, you know, Fisher's crazy because he's doing X, Y, and Z and thinks the Russians are listening in. We all know that they probably were.
They probably were.
Yeah. The odds are, yeah. But you know what? Actually, just because we're talking about Schreiber as Spassky and that first scene where he walks out on the beach, this is where I will give Zwick credit for certain things and certain decisions. Is, you know, all of his handlers are with him in these, you know, drab black suits, but he's got the black turtleneck and the stylish suit and the wavy hair and everything, and you can tell that, like, that this guy, if he were an American, would be given the Bobby Fischer treatment because he's as close as you're going to get to it.
He is the equivalent for sure.
He's the closest that the Communist Party's ever going to let him get in the Soviet Union. And, like, you know, there's even that feeling of, like, I would have liked to have the movie play even a little bit more on that fear, because everybody knows what happened to people who disappointed leadership, right? You know,
when
in
he
the Soviet
disappears
era.
that one night and plays pinball at a restaurant, like,
Yeah.
I'm getting very much, I would have liked to see Montana vibes. Like, not that he's full on defecting, but like he's getting a glimpse of the American life. And there's a lot of that ideological baked into this movie, into that time period.
Well, even tease out more in that conversation to make his handler feel more like somebody who's aware of where this can go and have longer conversations about, hey, Boris, you know how good you have it. You have it so much better than everybody else, you know, back home. And then you could even humanize Boris by having him have a response like, I know that bothers me. Like that sort of thing. And like you steal a little moment right there and you give Spassky even more, weight to his character and what he's going through, because that reflexively makes Fisher more relatable and understandable, you know, so far as those scenes go.
That's interesting because Spassky's not the villain.
Right.
He's the opposition.
No, he's the antagonist, but he's not. But he's not meant to hate him. He's not a villain.
We're not meant to be like, it's like, no, he's the to be defeated. Right. He's the Grand Master. He's,
and he's not doing this for a great Soviet pride. He's doing it because he wants to prove he's the best. He's motivated by the same thing that's motivating Fisher. And it's like, that I guess that's another thing where it's like, okay, we're sort of like piecing together all of the places where it sort of like fell short for us. But the thing is, again, the way it's put together, I can't really attack it procedurally. The way it's shot, I think, is a very, very pretty movie to look at. There are certain things, and Bradford Young, as we all know, I love his work. Bradford
Young, it's almost like the opposite of Solo. He used lights. He actually turned them on for this movie. And so it was beautiful cinematography.
Well, what's interesting is people with a trained eye can actually see how it's beautiful in both circumstances because the film's called for different things. But more importantly is that, this is one of those things where I would say that the visually the biggest success of the film is the fact that it's so easy for time period movies like this to get that sort of like we flooded too many sepia filters on and we put browns on everything, and this looks like what the time period really would have looked like if you were living in it, as opposed to that faded, overly yellowed Kodachrome photo that you find in your grandfather's basement sort of thing, where it's like, we've seen so many movies like that where it's like, guys, that's not actually how things looked back then. That's how the photograph sort of yellowed through time. So this feels like the real world when I look at it.
This one, I was really impressed with what Young and Zwick did with the look of this, because this was shot on this was primary shot on an Alexa, and which is a digital camera, but their negative format, they utilize 35 millimeter and 16 millimeter. And so I haven't read into this, but I'm just kind of guessing on what they did. Was they had a 2K DI process, so they shot it on Alexa, but they all probably did some other stuff on film to make it look like, you know, that of the time. But in order to master it, I'm sure that they put it onto film, almost kind of like
a pass-through for the very end.
Yeah, like kind of what the Batman did, where they shot it digitally, put it on film, and edited, and then rescanned it, you know, just to get that grain. I'm not saying that they did that here. I'm just saying that, like, with this movie, they, like, Young did such a great job of utilizing grain, where it doesn't look like a filter. It doesn't look like it was slapped on there. It doesn't look like they were trying to go so grainy or so weird, like Spielberg does sometimes with his glow. You know, like it really felt like, oh wow, this could have been shot in the 70s, but it's not distractingly different.
But there's also I know it seems so weird to fixate on this, but the one moment that I did fixate on was when they dropped Tobey Maguire into the Dick Cavett show.
I am 100% with you.
Completely unsuccessful. They completely missed the mark.
That is the most blaring example in the entire movie, and probably in a few movies who have done that. Like when Forrest Gump does that in the 90s better than you did. Yep. In 2012?
2014.
2014. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, that's because all you have to do is dirty it up. I'm not saying all you have to do. I'm not saying it's simple, but just it was clearly shot on a really nice camera, but they were just like, good enough.
Like, don't forget television cameras. I mean, well, they kind of did it at the very end when they were playing in the ping pong room, and they had like the point of view of the camera that was sending the signal, and it looked like it was shot through Vaseline, like it looked terrible. And then they click it into the film camera, so we don't have to actually watch it like that for the whole thing.
Love that, and they use the timer, like the guy, the whatever his position is, the guy in the room hitting the timer in order to transition. I love that stuff. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Well, and kind of around the look, as you guys are talking about, I really liked the sense of this movie did a really good job of making me feel in that time, not necessarily because of the look, like obviously that was there, but just I felt like, oh, this was a time when like everybody got their news from the nightly news and newspapers and bookshops, and like just that pre-internet time where your source of information, and you know, we talked about it in kind of the very beginning about that national fervor on this tournament, but you look at it and that's because that's what was on the news. That's what everyone was talking about. It could guide the collective focus of the nation in a way that the internet, you can't. There's not as much of those zeitgeist, everybody's in on it moments now. But back then, it was easy to be like you said, the top of the hour. Oh, we're talking about the 6 o'clock news, but let's check in on Bobby Fischer first. Like everybody's doing that.
You know, I think that's an excellent point. I think also we're sitting here struggling with, putting our finger on what didn't connect. But definitely audiences felt the same way, because this was what I would call a low risk budget, 19 million.
It's a good transition there, John, because box office.
And 5.6. I mean,
5.6 global. It was like
you can't
2.1 US.
You cannot get in the 2010s and nowadays. You can't get a movie. You can't get a movie catered for 20 million nowadays, it seems. But 19 million, that seems a surefire. Oh yeah, sure. We'll make back our money. Like were I an investor?
40, 50 million.
Yeah. Were I an investor, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll definitely get something back on this. And everybody takes a bath. I'm like, wow. So we're not alone in this.
Granted, Pawn Sacrifice, the biopic of Bobby Fischer, isn't screaming gotta see movie of the century. Just off the top. Like
you know,
I don't even remember seeing this marketed. I don't even remember this being. I didn't know this movie existed until we looked it up.
I hate to say it this way, but I almost wonder if it draws a bigger audience if there's a different star playing Fisher.
Probably.
And I that feels so dismissive of Maguire because, like I said, we all loved his performance. We all thought he did a great job. I just think that he's a harder sell to get people in the seats by this point in his career, which is a terribly unfair thing for a talented, gifted performer to be in a position like that. Like, but it really is, movies are what have you done for me lately sort of thing. And I think audiences, he hasn't had a renaissance, at this point in 2014.
This had been a direct to Netflix movie right after his cameo back in Spider-Man. That would have been like the moment, like, oh, he's kind of back in the public eye. People are like, oh, I remember him being in that. Oh, he did really good coming back. What's he doing now? And then he gets picked up for this streaming movie. So it's actually going to be, it's easy enough for people to see. And so people actually see it and they actually kind of talk about it. I think it would do better.
Yeah.
But that's moving it forward like 6 years, 7 years.
Well, okay. So Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007. And then he doesn't have a solid picture until 2013 with The Great Gatsby. But no one went to go see Gatsby because of Tobey Maguire.
True.
And then
it's a
he does
DiCaprio movie, yeah.
Right. And then he doesn't have anything of note until Pawn Sacrifice. And
Voice and Boss Baby 2017. I'm just kidding.
No, like Pawn Sacrifice in 2014.
Yeah.
And then he just drops off the face of the earth, movie-wise, until No Way Home with his cameo there. And then he has another cameo in Babylon.
Is this Oscar bait? Is this trying to win some awards? Like, why was this movie made? I don't know.
I think that a movie like this is it's not quote unquote just Oscar bait. I think that there's a decent.
Got to pay my mortgage bait.
Well, no, there's a decent script at its core. They see an opportunity. They amass a cast and a director, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to make Iron Man money, but we'll make our money back plus a little extra. And we can feel good about something we put out there. We can say, hey, look, we put art out there. I've got Edward Zwick, who's a well-respected director-producer. I've got, Tobey Maguire and Sarsgaard and all of these different names that are attached to it. I think this is the type of project where you just have a good feeling where you're like, you know what?
On paper, it adds up.
But I'm not on a green screen. I don't have to wear spandex. People will come see this because, and hey, we're tapping into the whole Cold War thing and remind people of what the world used to be like. I mean, this just seems like the sort of thing where it's like you do it because this is something you do because you do, in fact, love the idea of doing a film, of releasing something that people might care about.
If this movie was made in the mid to late 90s, still nobody would have seen it in the theaters, but this would have made its money back on DVD.
Easy.
I truly think so.
This is a DVD market type of film.
Absolutely. And I think that's the problem is that it came out in 2014 when if you weren't a blockbuster, then I'm saying a literal one where people are like lining up to go see it.
Blockbuster didn't exist by 20.
Yeah, like if you weren't a blockbuster film or a huge quote unquote tentpole, which I freaking hate that term today, then you were going to be watched on streaming, and then this was that weird middle ground in 2014, like 10 years ago. It was just that weird middle ground of this. I think this is just another example of the middle of the road movie, dying out. Like this isn't a huge film, and it's not super indie, but at the same time, it was only 19 million. So I can't really say.
And it's September 2015. I don't know what else was coming out that weekend, but it was enough competition to not, this isn't going to be seen, or I don't know how many theaters you're gonna have to put it in to get its money back.
I mean, September is not exactly, a movie month. You're coming out of summer. And you're not yet in the holiday season. And so it's like honestly, September is sort of like January, where it's like, maybe we'll get maybe we can find success here because the competition is light, which I think makes it even more painful that this didn't even make its budget back.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is that I think we're kind of answering our questions. It came out in September. It was
made 2 million in the US. Like,
yeah, I
died
think it
so
was
fast.
nobody heard about it. They probably didn't put that much of a marketing budget behind it. And I think they probably knew what they had. They're like, listen, we have this movie. We got to get rid of it. Put it in September so maybe we could make our money back. And I think
I don't know if the 19 million covers marketing. Usually those numbers don't.
Usually they don't put marketing into the budget.
But I can imagine if, for say, they were, them being like, look, we put 19 into it. It's not worth putting a 10 million marketing budget into this movie. That's just money down the drain. It's not going to make that back.
Like, don't throw
you
good
need
money
a good
after bad.
streaming deal where you get it on Netflix or Hulu or Apple TV or whatever as fast as possible, and that's the angle you go. But I don't know if we were quite there yet in 2015.
We weren't. Yeah,
so
we weren't quite there yet. It was just the wrong window of time for this. It really was. It was just the wrong moment.
And also on top of that, it's not a good movie.
But it's not a bad movie.
But it's not it's not a tent pole, as Tristan said.
It's one of those things where it's like, I don't hate the thing. I don't mind that I watched it. But at the same, would I watch it again? Probably not. But if like this is the sort of thing where, like, if I'm walking through a room and like somebody's got it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I might sit down and watch a little bit of it and be like, yeah, I like the way this is put together, But no, I'm not going to be adding this to my Blu-ray library, nor will I be demanding a 4K
Criterion Collection Pawn Sacrifice. Yeah,
exactly.
Not quite.
No, not quite there.
All right. Well, we're at about 45 minutes past the hour as we're rounding third. All these other analogies that aren't chess related, but yeah, it's been a really interesting discussion because I felt like it was a really honest and frank discussion that talked a lot about the positives and the negatives of this kind of middle of the road movie, which I'm grateful I've watched. It was like John said, I think it was enjoyable, but was it a great movie? Was it, as Tristan says, a tent pole?
Stop bringing that back to me.
No. So I'm going to start with my rating and final thoughts. I'm going to give it a 2, a solid 2. It's, if I was going back to it, I probably would only go back to it in hey, I want to show you this one scene from this one actor that I think they did really well, not really the whole picture in general. I'm not going to buy this movie or watch this movie again. Not that that is a huge factor, but it tips the scale. But yeah, it's definitely I know we jumped, what is it, like 13 years, 12, 13 years from Last Samurai that we talked about last week. Very different movie, very different pace. But yeah, I think what you guys said as far as the era it's in, it's pre-streaming. There's no DVDs to pick it up. It just falls right into that gap and it just cannot recover. And I'm going to have to punch the clock. So
yeah.
So we're going to have all the chess analogies here. So John, give us your final thoughts if you would. But you only have 1 minute and I'm timing you.
I don't know if I have anything left in the tank for that. I've played my final gambit and shared my thoughts. And I think I wind up being a little bit nicer. But in all honesty, it's not great. It's not bad. It's just there. So I wind up with a 2.5.
I'm going to be like John. I'm going to give it a 2.5. I wanted to give it a 2, but I started going through our ratings chart. And I started comparing it to some other movies that I've given it a 2. And I'm like, oh, no, I didn't hate it like that. I didn't hate it like that. And so, yeah, I think to me, like, I don't think this is I don't hate this movie. It's not like Wendell and Wild or whatever the hell that was called. Where I was just so angry after I watched it. This one, I was just like, man, why doesn't this work?
Wendell and Wild was disappointing because we actually had expectations.
What a great tagline for the poster, though. There you go.
All right. Yeah, this was this. So this is 2.5 for me, 2.5 for John, and 2 for Darren. Now, Darren, we've wrapped up on the House of Zwick And it's been
I
a
have.
wild, wild ride. But what are we doing next week?
That's right. House of Zwick, decade by decade, from glory to Pawn Sacrifice, has been a great run. But next week, we're changing gears. We're going to cover the very short directing career, but still amazing, Greta Gerwig, starting with Lady Bird from 2017, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.